Welcome back. Well, today I am joined by Dr. Misag Karimi, who is here on behalf of the City of Hope. Well, Dr. Karimi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting.
You're welcome. Well, it's been a long time and, cancer didn't stop and we had the pandemic for quite some time. And, I know I've heard a lot of things have happened, like people actually stopped going to get treated because they were afraid. And there's just a lot of things that I think we can certainly talk about. But before we get to those items, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a medical oncologist with the City of Hope. Currently, I'm the director of operations at the clinic in Fashion Island.
Okay.
I do treat cancer patients mainly with GI cancers and also cancers of the prostate and the bladder. But we treat all comers, but we do subspecialize in different areas. And we've been down here really since February of 2020.
Okay. All right. Is it true that 1 in 3 Americans will get cancer?
Yes. Yes. So it's very common that we see this, that a lot of us are going to hear the 3 words that we like to hear, that you have cancer.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, and I know we talked a little bit about COVID and how people had prevented themselves from going in to be checked, because they didn't do that, have more people been diagnosed with cancer in different stages?
Unfortunately, yes. So what we have seen is that patients are getting diagnosed at later stages of the disease, and that makes it more challenging. That definitely makes it more difficult to cure these diseases. Whereas sometimes if they're caught earlier, chance of cure is much higher. So
right.
It's been an issue.
So let's talk about some of those prevention tips. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that people can do at home to prevent themselves from potentially getting cancer. What are some of those things?
Right. So if you break down the prevention, I think the major bullet points. One is, yes, what you just said, what you could do at home, and we could talk about those. The other one is going through screening as recommended by your doctor. That's the other side. Very, very important points.
So when it comes to screenings, I mean, the only screening that I'm aware of is, to get your mammogram once a year or the pap smear for a woman once a year. What are some men's things that should be done?
Right. So that obviously depends on the person's history, the person's family history. All of those do matter. The habits, obviously, in life, but the ones that we commonly recommend, regardless of the history, is obviously colonoscopy to, look for cancer in the colon or precancerous polyps in the colon to try to prevent a future disease. Also, following with the primary care. You do physical exams, you look for signs of, again, other more common types of cancer that we see. I mean, you mentioned breast and also prostate in men. Those are some screening tools that we have at our disposal to try to catch these early and try to get rid of them.
Okay. Something that always seems to evade me is when you talk to people who are over the age of 55 and generally they're supposed to have a colonoscopy, but then the minute you mention that, they're like, oh, I don't want to have one. What are the misconceptions of a colonoscopy?
Well, I mean, so it's not a pleasant procedure, but what I usually tell my patients is that, I've done it. So I don't just preach. I think, the actual procedure, that's some people that have this misconception. The actual procedure is really very low risk.
Right.
By far, we don't remember. You don't really remember the procedure because you're in twilight.
Right.
You get medications. It's the day before the colonoscopy that you have to, drink the fluids to try to clear the colon. That is not pleasant.
Yeah.
But thinking about the big picture and what is caught, and when we can prevent these cancers or catch them early, it makes a huge difference. Now, if you're not able to do colonoscopy for whatever reason, there's always the stool cards that could be done. So at least you can start with those. But the issue with the stool cards is, yes, it will catch cancer, but it's not really good for catching polyps.
Right.
And that's where you like to catch them if you can. So they're precancers, you don't have to go through surgery, and you just get rid of the polyps.
Well, the minor inconvenience certainly outweighs the long-term problems if someone was to be diagnosed with cancer, that's for sure. Let's talk about some of the things that they could do at home. So for instance, you mentioned here snacking. Well, everybody loves pretzels and things like that, but there's better ways to snack.
Absolutely. I think we really have to be cognizant of what we eat. I mean, the part of this is, you mentioned pretzels, there's chips, there's, other things that we try to munch on. And just switching those to nuts, almonds, walnuts, they're much better. Having some fruits around, also that makes a difference. I think shifting our diet a little bit away. I'm a big proponent of this. Try to stay away from processed food in general as much as you can, and go with what's natural.
Exactly. And then one thing that's unfortunate is that throughout the pandemic, many people did turn to alcohol, and they probably drank way more than they normally do. One, because they're at home and have access to it all day long. And two, people were just depressed and isolated. And so that kind of helped ease, their issues. However, that is also a cancer causing type thing. So what do you recommend there?
So absolutely. So that's the other part of the lifestyle, the alcohol and the smoking, tobacco, they're both there. So reducing the alcohol consumption is very, very important. I think speaking with your doctor, again, depending on your personal risk, your family risk, but for example, just to give you an idea, women who've had a history of breast cancer, they have been shown to have increased risk of recurrence of breast cancer if they drink more than 3 alcoholic drinks per week.
Per week?
Per week. Now, these are for women who've had breast cancer before. This is not the general population, but that sort of gives you an idea that, I think reducing that, and, like everything else, you have to be careful and reduce that. Now, if you're taking medications, that's definitely a discussion with your doctor that you may have to sort of altogether leave that, unless it's, for Christmas or New Year or Valentine's Day or something like that.
Exactly. Well, in closing, doctor, what are some things you would like to remind our viewers?
Well, I think paying attention to your well-being and health is extremely important. That's the best thing we can do. So the lifestyle changes, again, we talked about the food intake. Exercise is extremely important. That needs to be definitely thought about. And following with your doctor for screening is very, very important, because with the COVID, as you mentioned, that's been put on hold, and that's dangerous. So we could do a lot better. We can have much better outcomes when we catch these cancers earlier. And again, at City of Hope now in Orange County, we're able to provide a lot of these services, and also try to provide a better care for patients who are diagnosed with disease.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the information. It was nice to have you on.
Thank you for inviting.
All right.
Okay.
And if you want more information about what we've just discussed, you can go to cityofhope.org/OC. We'll be right back.